how's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast, brought to you by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computer needs. You need a custom computer for gaming, streaming, creative, music, business. They will build the best custom PC for you. Get $100 off your entire build. You code CPPod at darkfusionsystems.com. Make sure for the podcast below. Now to our feature presentation. We have Lauren Babic from the band Red Handed Now on the podcast. The brand new album, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia, releases on May 24th, 2024. So we go deep down, but we really start this conversation out hot. And I mean insanely hot. Talking about authenticity in music, talking about how artists are having to deal with so much when it comes to the internet, TikTok, doom scrolling, and how do you show your individuality in that? We talk about all the rediscovery that has to happen for artists, especially when they're used to other things from the past 5 years and now seeing how prominent these reels are and TikTok and everything. And how do you still stand out and stay authentic? It's a beautiful episode. Get ready for it. Enjoy. Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. My guest here today, you've probably seen her online. You've easily seen her screaming her ass off with incredible vocals, and you've probably thought to yourself, why can't I do that? Because that is absolutely incredible, because I know I've thought that myself too. And now being able to bring her onto the podcast, talk about her band's brand new album called A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia, which comes out on May 24th. I gotta say, this is an absolute treat. I almost messed it up already, but please welcome Miss Lauren Babic from the band Red Handed Now. So Lauren, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Hello. I'm good. I'm super happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, and super stoked to talk about the new album.
I am super stoked to have you on here as well. I've had multiple friends always ask, when is this going to happen? When is it going to happen? I'm like, just give it some time. And now it's finally able to happen with a brand new album coming out. And let's just dive right into it, because that is, of course, the big thing that's got coming out. And when I was looking through it, of course, had the press release for it. I looked like you said that the album is a testament to the discontentness that we have and how we become so reliant on technology during the pandemic, and just seeing how everything, especially human connection, a lot of the consequences of that have deteriorating mental health. It's really tough to see what's gone on. And I love the fact that you jumped into something like that. Of course, we've heard a lot of people talk about that, but really getting more of that emotional connection through music to really dive into that is something that has to be brought up to really allow people to connect, not only the message, but to realize how far technology has, connected us, but also driven us apart at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there are some stark differences between our previous album, I'd Rather Be Asleep, and Virtual Dystopia, because obviously we did I'd Rather Be Asleep during the pandemic, and now coming out of that, we have Virtual Dystopia. And over that time period, I think the landscape of how we consume media has changed drastically, obviously with the introduction of the infinite scroll. And I've struggled with platforms like TikTok and the introduction of reels, and I've just noticed that it has truly rewired us. And now more than ever, specifically musicians and artists are struggling with sharing their art, and we're getting lost in this ether of just everything all at once. And it kind of just all came to a head because obviously I've been doing YouTube and covers for so long, for almost 15 years, which is really weird to say. And I've seen all these weird changes, but only now it's become something else. And I've just gone down these doom spirals of where do we fit in? How can we still share our art and still stand out in this weird time? It's very interesting to me.
I have to agree. I mean, we take a look at just what has happened, especially given the pandemic and given how prominent TikTok had become. Instagram Reels, you got YouTube Shorts, and a lot of those platforms have really taken full force into the short form content. And when it comes to musicians, I'm not going to lie, we have seen some musicians use that to the utmost advantage and really grow off of that. Bands like Bad Omens and Sleep Token really do stand out in that light. But when it comes to the fact that you look at the type of content that's really hitting, you have such a shorter attention span from people that you have to latch onto. I brought up this study a couple of times through podcasts, but this absolutely fits. It was like 2014. The average human attention span was about 2.5 minutes. And now in 2024, it's about 45 seconds. So you're losing out on a huge chunk of time to hold people, to really get them to not only listen to your stuff, connect with your music, but these platforms, especially TikTok, it's really hard to have that connection piece because it's so easy just to doom scroll through it. And then you're going to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if, say, someone comes up on some stuff from you or stuff from Red Hand Denial and they hear it and they really like it, of course, they hit the follow button on TikTok, they hit the like button. But outside of that, the next incentive is to scroll up and keep doom
It's
scrolling.
gone.
The incentive is not to go further in to connect with the artist, where when you're on YouTube and doing the covers, the comment section was easily a lot more able to connect. The links that you could link stuff to, people could go and click on that instead of just having one link in the bio. And even if you click on a link tree thing, people don't want to click on that and then go to multiple different aspects because the attention span is so short. So it really has been a tough piece. And especially seeing how vastly different things have been with the introduction of that and with the prominence of that, especially from your standpoint, being so heavily involved with, just getting yourself out there on the internet and really growing from that. I can see where there's a lot of issues that are coming up here, and the change is just incredible to have to learn and see how many musicians, especially in the younger space, because you have to be on that platform for people to notice you, but then there's no connection to go further than that.
Yeah, and I think there's there are these like questions that arise of intention, and you mentioned like bands like Bad Omens and Sleep Token, and they fully blew up from those specific sound bites and people like reacting to them. And I think intention is super important because I think Noah's said it before, like they never intended for Just Pretend to be that song. It just happened, which is great. Like their success is deserved and they're a wonderful band. But now we're seeing almost, and I say this treading lightly, but almost the death of authentic art, because now we're seeing people making art with that in mind. Like, okay, how is this going to get viral? And it's like, where is the intention? Is the intention to make a good song, or is the intention to go viral with this one sound bite? And it's these questions that I've struggled with. It's like, how do we bring back, how do we know that something's authentic anymore? And kind of just struggling with that. And now we see like young people saying, oh, what career path do you want to take? Oh, I want to be an influencer. And that to me is wild, because it's like the intention has sort of flipped on its head. It's like, oh, we're not using social media as a tool to promote the skill we already have. We're like trying to get likes and views, but we don't even know who we are or what we can do or what we can show. It's just for the sake of getting, follows and views. And it's been a very interesting thing to watch, especially in the past like 3 to 4 years. Just viewing it and observing. It's been really, really interesting, but also kind of scary. And I think musicians that have existed before these platforms and these algorithms, it's like, where do we fit? Like, how do we still make art and be able to share that with people and have a connection? It's wild.
It is wild. And I think one of the biggest problems I personally have with all of that, and I think it might echo what you're saying, is when people are really starting to focus on creating music right now, just given the fact of how prominent those platforms are when it comes to discovery, the authenticity goes away when you're wondering, how are we going to make our music? How are we going to make our songs that are going to hit on these specific aspects and have those viral moments? So essentially you're creating your music around this viral moment and you're trying to hit on that. But of course, if you're going to listen to it, people are going to end up listening to the full song at some point. It might not just be for that one piece, but you got to create a full song off of that. However, if you're so focusing on that one viral moment, it's going to limit the growth of the song. It's going to limit your growth as a songwriter. And it's going to limit the authenticity of it, because now as an artist, you're being put into this box and you have to follow these certain parameters. And that's going to end up causing music to just become potentially more sterile and just more overproduced and more streamlined. So we're not going to have these massively breakout artists that are doing things that are so incredibly new and raw and visceral. And yeah, you get bands like Sleep Token who've been doing something completely different and broke out off of that.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Out of anybody, I was like, I'm so glad it's them. I was like, thank God, because like I've been such a Sleep Token fan since Sundowning, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm so glad that people are listening to them, and I'm so glad. But it's so interesting to just see the shift of the intention behind art. And I've been watching and gathering information, and it's like, okay, we can post a clip of a beautiful music video that took time and directors and storyboards to make, and that will get a fraction of reach or views than just something we strung together on a phone. And I think it comes down to the actual apps themselves. Like they're literally rewiring us because of what they're showing us. And it's almost like a mini propaganda. And so it's been very sad to watch the decline of the importance of a music video. Like everyone's like, you don't need a good music video anymore. And it's like, yeah, but what about the days when we would care and craft the visual aspect of our music? And that has just been shot in the head. It's been crazy to see.
It has. I had recently another conversation around the whole music video aspect, and it's like, is it dead? No, it's changing to something completely different, where you're focused on those viral moments, those small clips that you can use just based on the fact of what is prominent right now and how people consume content, how the people consume media. And of course, it is such short form content where that has to be done. So you're not able to really get that full force feel of a music video because people are just so focused in on that one moment and putting out that one moment. When you go back and you think about like the music that, we listened to when we were younger, watching these music videos, getting inspired by them, we went through the full thing. And there's music videos I still remember watching back when I was, in middle school and high school, and really got into because of the beauty that was behind it, because of the story that was being told. Are there bands that are still doing that today? Absolutely there are. But the issue is now you're seeing more bands and they're making some of these things, and more artists when they make some of these things, they're making them for that viral moment because that's how people are consuming music. I get that it's part of what's going on in the overall landscape of the economics, the marketplace, humanity, but it does massively take away from the creative aspect and from that, like you said, that authentic aspect, because now the focus is on making sure this one piece really hits in this certain medium and not how this whole entire story is going to come together and really impact someone from a listener or from a visual standpoint.
Yeah, and I've struggled with my own connection with metal and metalcore recently, and I feel like everything, even in the deathcore realm, like now that we had, those big moments, obviously like Into the Hellfire, like that went absolutely crazy. It's like it feels like after these pivotal viral moments, after that comes like a slew of just the same things. And it just metal and metalcore and deathcore at this point in time, I've struggled with really latching onto something that is new and fresh, because I feel now it's like, oh, but how can we have this like the biggest blah moment, or like the biggest like how many animal sounds can we fit in this breakdown, and what reactor is going to have the best reaction to it. And it's like I'm struggling with connecting with the new music, and it's been a struggle.
I can somewhat understand that from both perspectives. Let's use Lorna Shore to the Hellfire when the whole entire pig squeal moment came at the end of the song and everyone got into it. It's human nature for people to try and pile on to what's popular, try and really capture that trend because it's what's hitting and they want to make sure they get a piece of that. But still, when it comes to connecting with bands off of that, it's like from the deathcore genre. Lorna Shore, Slaughter to Prevail are probably the two best examples I can give because they had those moments. But then going forward with their music, like you listen to Pain Remains from Lorna Shore, and it is like cinematic deathcore to its utmost beauty. So I've been able to dive into that, but diving into other bands, I agree with you. It is not necessarily as easy because it's just like, oh, it's just kind of this one off of Lorna Shore, this one off of Slaughter to Prevail, this one off this viral moment. We've seen it in metalcore as well, and there's certain bands that I've been getting into more. I'm like, yeah, I absolutely love this, but I do agree there is times where it is harder just because we're so focused in as a society on that viral moment because of the prominence that pop culture is put on it, the prominence that these social media apps are putting on it to really connect and to really, not really connect, but really just get those moments that people are going to watch. What's going to hit on those algorithms? It's becoming more of a what's going to please the algorithm than what is actually, humanly pleasing. Because if we're trying to please what a machine thinks versus what humans think, everything's going to get much more streamlined. Everything's going to get much more within a box. And then the creativity off of that is not going to happen much further. Or if it does, it's going to have to be something that's so out of the box, but that it just ends up getting that reach, just kind of like Lorna Shore did.
Yeah, and I think the creativity and the introduction of Will Ramos into that band, like it was the perfect concoction because they were doing exactly what they wanted to do. And they were using the wheelhouse of Will Ramos, who's like arguably one of the best to do it. And I think that's just a testament to their successes because they were truly being creative and centering themselves around the band members and their skills. And it honestly, like you hit the nail on the head. Like same with Slaughter to Prevail. Like Alex, like the other side of the coin, like they're building the music around his skill set and his just power of a vocalist. And it's amazing to see those two bands just absolutely thrive because they're just being creative with themselves.
It is fantastic to see them thrive. But it's the thing, again, I feel your struggle is like we want to see more of those bands that have those things that can thrive. And we don't want to see people just try and mimic everything that they see because they've seen it go viral, because they've seen it gain some popularity. So what can we do to make sure that we kind of build up back that prominence of authenticity, especially in a world where not only we have platforms that are pushing for just those viral moments, but now with the introduction of AI becoming much more of a prominent thing and continuing to grow, man, that's a whole nother like can of worms in itself of how that could potentially affect music in the long term and remove some of that authenticity or remove it all entirely just to please specific algorithms or even using algorithms to please other algorithms.
Yeah, it's become just this weird, like we're caught in this cog and it's like, how do we get out of that? And that's kind of what like the subject matter, like the overarching subject matter of the new album is. It's just like trying to navigate through these very, very weird times because if anything, just more questions arise. It's like, how do we deal with this? How do we still remain ourselves, but deal with this whole new way of ingesting things and connecting with people? It's like it's a massive shift that is only going to get more interesting as AI gets more powerful and more normalized because I think it's being used very frequently, but it's still not commonplace like consciously. It's in the background, but it's not up in our faces and it's not completely normalized yet. So it's like, how do we navigate that and still keep ourselves?
Yeah, and it's kind of like speaking to the new album. It's sort of an identity crisis, but not fully an
Hmm.
identity crisis because you know who you are. You know who you are as a band, and you know who you are as people as together. But the issue is now it's different from trying to show that in your music, but how to present that, how to really get through that, and get
Hmm.
that message out there. When the way that people have developed over the past 5 years and evolved, given what we're using to consume media, consume content, whatever it is, has completely shifted our overall mindset, our overall brain waves as humans. So it's a little bit of like not necessarily showing your own identity, like knowing your identity, but showing that identity to people in a way that it's actually going to not just hit with them, but connect with them at that human level.
I think that's what we're kind of all searching for, but we're looking for it in the wrong places right now. And I think like the places that we're searching for it are kind of working against us. And we have to like kind of break out of that cog and touch grass almost and like really just like reassess like, okay, I can just separate myself a little bit. And I after like touring and stuff on this tour, like I've made an effort to just like put my phone away and just like go out, literally just go outside. And I realized like, whoa, this whole world is here and like I forgot about it. And it's so easy, like phones just make it so easy to just stay there. And we have to just like get out of that. And it's very difficult.
It is. It's kind of like the doom scroll of TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts is just the evil cousin of the evilness that essentially phones created, where people are just kind of stuck with their faces just
Hmm.
like this and not really enjoying what's around. I mean, this was like a month ago. I was just like feeling burnt out completely just on everything I was doing. And it was like maybe it was a nice day outside. So I just rode, because I'm from Wisconsin. I drove down to Lake Michigan. I just laid on the beach for an hour, and I think I was listening to the new Belmont record and maybe some Beartooth
Hmm.
after that. But it was just phone, had it in my pocket, didn't even pull it out. I had my music going, just looking out the lake, just seeing a bunch of birds fly by, seeing people walk by. And it was just so calming, but also so nice just to actually see people and not just be stuck
Hmm.
inside and working on my computer all day. It's
Yeah, and the
incredible.
crazy part is like from the from like the internet side of things, now it's like everyone I talk to, it's like, oh yeah, I gotta make a reel. I gotta react to how many emo songs I know. And it's like everyone kind of hates it, but they still do it. And it's like, okay, what are we doing? What are we doing here? And everyone's so burnt out right now. And it's like, how can we how can we like look after our well-being and just like pull ourselves out? It's wild.
Well, the insane thing is if everyone is burnt out by it, no one really wants to do it, but we're just doing it to please like a platform or just make sure we get our name out there. There's got to be a different way we can go about this. What if the music industry is
Hmm.
itself collectively decide they're going to go a different route, and now we're all going to just put ourselves out there by doing this, or actually actually have people come and see a live show and really getting deep there, because that's where the connection is going to be the greatest, is when you actually get to see the performer, when we get to see you perform live, we get to see the band up there perform live, we get to see the emotion, the energy you're putting into all of these songs in the performance, and us feeling that energy and going away from the show thinking, my God, I don't even know if I knew that band beforehand, and if I did, I know them all over again, and it is fantastic. And now that connection is built within there. But again, it's because of the pandemic, because of how the way technology has come, everyone is so focused in on just looking at their phone, hitting the reel, making sure that they react to the most emo songs they know, and just kind of saying, okay, this is what we have to do now, I guess. They're like, it's taking the art out of the artist at that point.
It really is. And I don't think any musician or singer ever intended on any of this. Like I obviously never intended on, getting this massive following on like Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, but like it just happened that way because I just wanted to sing for people. And now it's become something else. And I don't think we were really ever equipped to deal with all this. And I never wanted to do all that. I just want to sing. I want to write cool music, but it seems like it's just not enough. It's not enough anymore. Like we have to wear many hats to actually get people to listen to our art. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to make cool shit. So it's wild.
It is wild, and yeah, just make cool shit. That's what we all want to do. We just want to do the stuff that we want to do, especially from the artistic standpoint. We just want to make the art. We just want to be like embrace ourselves in the art. The last thing we want to do is essentially have to be on the business side, the marketing side, the management side, how to edit this stuff. You don't want to basically become that like complete one person shop where you have to just do everything at once. And now the art, which is going to be the most important thing, goes from what you're doing, 90 to 95% of the time to like this small sliver that you have to fit in there just to make sure that everything else keeps going so the band stays relevant to a certain platform online.
Yeah, and I've seen it from people like Adam Lambert, for God's sake. Like, it's Adam Lambert. He's singing for Queen. And he was on TikTok and he was saying, like, guys, I feel like what I'm doing is not enough. And I'm just like, you're Adam Lambert. How are you feeling that way? And it's wild that the industry, like record labels even now, are putting the onus on the artist to promote themselves, and it's this shift on an industry level too. Like, I've had like record labels approach me and being like, Lauren, we want you to cover this band's song so we can promote them. And I'm just like, that's wild to me. Like, you're a record label, you're a major record label, like that's your job, that is literally your job. But like, they're flipping the script because of how much of a juggernaut it is, and it's interesting to see that shift on like like that level, like the major label level, and it's wild.
I'm not surprised that you have record labels come and ask you that, but I'm surprised that it's becoming like such a big thing, given the fact that you're seeing these major record labels, record companies, who your job is to like help these artists out, to promote them, to get their name out there. And yeah, you're trying to do it by having other people do the job for you. It's just something ain't right here.
Oh, it happens more than you know. Like, it's wild now. Like, now the script has shifted. Like, record labels are kind of struggling, and they want to do as little work as possible, so they're either signing artists that already went viral because, oh, hey, we're just being handed an artist that's already popular and already has a following. Well, we're going to make so much money. And then it's either that side, or they want an artist that is like completely unknown so they can control and mold them into exactly what they want. So it's like, what about everyone else? Like, where does everyone else fit in? And it's such an interesting thing to see.
It just blown my mind right now just thinking about that. But again, we've heard the term industry plants, but if you're taking artists that if you're waiting for artists to go viral or waiting for artists that you can just mold into your own, that takes out what we talk about, the authenticity. That takes out so much individuality, because either you're turning some artists into exactly what you want them to be in order to make the most amount of money from a record label standpoint, or you're waiting for them to fit into that small box of virality that are going to hit on, all those different platforms, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is. And then you're going to grab them because you know that they already fit into that box. The authenticity is gone. The individuality is gone again, unless you have those viral moments where everything just works because of your individualized identity.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a small sliver compared to what's actually going on right now.
Yeah, it's a very narrow scope for sure.
It is. And one thing I'm really pleased with, though, from your standpoint, is especially on the brand new record, of course, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. Always got to say the name because I want to make sure people remember it, even though in the video it's going to be right below you the whole entire time. When I speak about the word authenticity in this album, I mean, it absolutely is there, especially going through it, listening through the lyrics, listening through how everything progressed, listening to how the backing instrumentals really allowed everything to come full force, to really let that story and let that message come out. The authenticity is there. There's no denying that.
I hope so. It was super, like, as far as the lyrical content, like, it was super personal, and I pulled from like my past experiences and my present experiences just from my life. And like, I think I'd rather be asleep was my struggle with mental health, but like this album is more of like a big picture perspective, but at the same time like still drawing from like issues and things from my past as well. So I think it brings like a different heaviness to the album that maybe isn't quite there instrumentally, because obviously like I it's not our heaviest album by any means like instrumentally, but I think
Mhm.
like subject matter and lyrical matter um is very heavy on this album.
But even with some of those instrumentals, you didn't necessarily need to go as heavy as you have in the past just to really evoke those different emotions around this idea of, trying to find your own identity once again, even though, in this brand new landscape of what the world
Hmm.
is, what the world has become. And when you think about that as well, and you're trying to find your place in there, other things from your past end up coming through to your head because now you have to just like figure out how this all works within there and potentially reprocess some of those emotions. So it's not necessarily as heavy as just dealing with them right up front. It's so much more of this interwoven thing that if you're not going to be bringing it in a little bit more of this, sometimes compassion, sometimes more just open, just grandeur, and not necessarily as heavy full force sound, it's going to end up getting lost in the shuffle. That's what's different about this one. But of course, you do still have some songs on there that you just go absolutely heavy. So that is there, but it has its place too. There's much more of a variety on this album in terms of that overall backing sound. But again, it is needed to really show the overall depth that is the message and
Hmm.
that is the lyrics that you wrote for this.
Yeah, I think this is the most dynamic album that we've ever done. Because I think if we wrote 10 different versions of Parasite, it would have been very boring and very one-dimensional. And we kind of like explored different genre influences that we never have before. Like we went very industrial with a few of the songs. We incorporated a lot of post rock into some of the songs at the end. More EDM
Mm-hmm.
influences, future bass influences. We have our first like acoustic song that we've ever done. So we're already a band that like doesn't really confine ourselves to genre, but this I think this album is the one that shows like the most depth that we've ever had.
And it makes sense to show the most depth you ever had in this album when you have so much depth to the lyrics and to the story to really show that off. So yeah, you don't want to write Parasite 10 times over and see how that's going to work out and put that on an album. I've seen bands do that where they like write the same song over and over again. And,
Hmm.
maybe it works out one time because you hit on a magical moment, but then you try and do that over and over again. And people just kind of want to go back to that one album that actually hit. And then it's like, well, I don't want to go back to the other ones. Just go back to the sound that
Hmm.
I remember when it actually hit me. But you go through some of these other songs too, especially adding some more of those EDM future bass stuff in there. You go to the end album with I Hope You're Happy and Home, and they have this different feel compared to the rest of the album. But then my personal favorites, which are Smokescreen and Eat Glass, those are much more upfront. They have the heavier tone there. Eat Glass is much more raw and visceral in terms of the overall emotion that was there. When I heard that, I was just like, now that's the one I'm a big fan of. Yeah.
Yeah, Eat Glass is like literally the rawest song on the whole album. It's just one bass track, two guitar tracks, and a single vocal track. Like it is so like if you actually look at the session, it's like that big. It's so small. And it that obviously has like the classic RHD sound of just like guitar leads on guitar leads on guitar leads, and then me just being really pissed. And that's probably like that and Smokescreen are like the most pissed songs. But Eat Glass is a whole other it's a whole other thing. I was pissed when I did that one.
I'm not surprised you're pissing you that one. I love the fact that you said the session was probably like the smallest session that's on there if you look at the whole entire, backlog of it. Just because it makes sense too. There is that power metal tone to the overall guitar, but it has like this punk riff to it. So it has that aggressiveness overall. And you just going aggressive with the vocals while having some more of that, like at times, what I thought was like Rage Against the Machine, Fever 333 influence vocal patterns.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was aggressive, in your face, and a giant fuck you to somebody. I'm like, whoever you're trying to get at and just say fuck you to, this absolutely has it every step of the way. And it's all based on the lyrics, the aggressiveness behind everything that's there from vocals, instrumentals, but also the different patterns and different tones that you use, especially with not only the guitar tone, but your vocal set as well. It stood out to me like none other. I'm like, this is probably easily my favorite RHD song without a shred of a doubt.
That's cool. I'm actually super stoked that you resonated with that one, because we were trying to, as we were putting the album together, we were just like, okay, we have a couple of these like really just raw as fuck songs in our like bank, I guess. And then Chris was just like, all right, pull this one out. And it's very different. Like the end product is very different than what it started with, but it was literally just riffs. So we in the session, we just had like all the riffs together. And then I sat there and chopped up every stanza, and I moved them like a puzzle, like moved the riffs around. And I was like, okay, this is the order they're going to go in. I think I know what I'm going to do vocally. And it came out just super pissed. And then it has this like weird 2011 Attack style like breakdown, and we were just like, this is done. It's done. It doesn't need anything else.
Yeah, it honestly probably need that like little bit of attack style in there, just because you're not expecting it to come through, but it also gives the song a little bit more depth beyond, potentially just being something that's just so straightforward, aggressive. By adding that little bit to it, it just completely transforms it into something grander. But then when you go back, just going full force into it again, you feel like it's there, but you feel like it's a different, renewed sense of energy.
Yeah, it was a definite good palate cleanser to like the back quarter of the album, because the last two songs are really slow, and Home is a very like melancholic, almost emo vibe, and it just brings that little last burst of energy that I think the last part of the album really needed.
Yeah, because honestly, think about it too. If you didn't have that, just given that if you ordered the album in a different way and you didn't have Eat Glass towards the end, if you especially had I Hope You're Happy and Home at the back end of it, yeah, you would have probably potentially gone out with like that little bit of a whimper, people might have thought. And it's just like, it may have just knowing how people react to music, how people listen through an album as well. It's like, oh, the start started out so good, but then you got to the bottom, it's just the energy was not there. By having that full force blast in there and then two songs left to kind of bring it down, but also more, it's not necessarily bringing down the energy, but it's more of centering you back to what the message of the album really is.
Yeah, when we were ordering the songs, like, it's a very non-conventional way of putting an album together, and I think that's just a testament of us just saying fuck it. Like, we were just like, oh well, the single doesn't have to be number 3, or like, we don't have to have like a bad track 7, or like it was just like, we just committed, and then we didn't overthink it, and we just did that. And we were looking at the track order, and we were like, are we really gonna put Eat Glass before I Hope You're Happy? Like, and then we're like, yeah, we're gonna do that. And too bad. Like, it was just a testament to just us not overthinking it. And I think it's just a super like non-conventional song ordering. And I was speaking to A&P Reacts, and he was saying cradling Smokescreen with 2 interludes was really interesting to him. And he was like, why did you do that? And I was like, we just wanted to give the album like on the scale, just like that moment where okay, now this is the back half of the album. So it's like, why would you put 2 interludes just separated by 1 song? And we were like, it felt right. Like, we just wanted to. Like,
I mean, when you think about it too, I'd rather have an album when the order is like what feels like it should be instead of this like, oh, you need to have the single is song 3. Maybe if a bad song is song 7. Shit, one of my favorite albums from 2020, I'm like, oh yeah, the bad song might be song 7. End up being one of my favorite songs of all time from Polaris because it was above my head. I'm just like, that was your song 7? And it was just like, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. I don't know how you would want to have, and listening through the order too, I'm like, it fits right there. You want to have those songs in the order fit and tell that story instead of like, oh, we need to have this one here and this one here just based on the fact of different premonitions from the past. It's different than the year 1985 now.
Mm-hmm. It is. And we were just like, okay, do we come out of the gate with Parasite just off the bat, just like boom, vocal entry, and we're just like, yeah, like why not? Why do we have to have a little intro? Like, let's just go in. Let's just go balls to the wall. And we were our second single, One More Night, we were just like, do we really want to contrast Parasite with that song? Because we were struggling, like, does My Demise come second or does One More Night come second? And we're on an indie label, and we were talking with like our management, and we were really struggling, and they were saying how this album is a very deep album. Like, there's no one standout song where it's like, this is your single. And we were struggling to find a single because every song in its own right is really good. And our label is just like, on our previous album, it was so obvious that Father Said is the song. And it was so obvious. So we call those types of albums like a top heavy album where like the singles are very good and the rest are like kind of deep cuts. But like this, like with Dystopia, we were struggling to find a single because every song was written with intention, and every one is just very single worthy. Like we were contemplating on having I Hope You're Happy as a single because it's so much like those old Paramore songs that we know and love. And also like a little homage to A Day to Remember, like If It Means a Lot to You. Like it has that kind of vibe. And so we were struggling to find our singles and the order of which we would release them because we were just so confident in our songwriting, and every song is good in its own way. So it was a little bit of an identity crisis because obviously we're a very shreddy band. We come from prog and math roots. So how do you lead in? How do you have a single like Home? Like it's very weird for a band like us to have a single like Home, but I think if people really take the time to listen to this album from front to back, they will understand exactly who we are.
So that's why I always make the suggestion like this. What you have to do is, especially because here in the US, this album's coming out on Memorial Day weekend. So you might be driving somewhere. You're probably traveling somewhere. Everyone usually is. So what you should do is literally take this whole entire album, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia, and play it from front to back. Don't shuffle it. Don't skip nothing. Go from front to back in your car so you're fully immersed in the experience. Then you'll really understand how good this album is.
I would totally agree, because I think just hearing one song is just a very small piece of the puzzle. Like you have to put the whole puzzle together and then just kind of make your own decisions on what you like and what songs resonate. But you got to have the whole puzzle with this album.
Oh, you absolutely have to. I do want to jump to this though, because one of my good friends, longtime follower of the podcast, absolutely loves Right Hand Now, and he's like, I gotta get a question in there if you can ask it. And I make good on my promises, so I was gonna bring it up. Yeah. So Mr. Julian Purnell, Heavy Metal Joker on Instagram, as said, he's always noticed that the band has incorporated pop elements into the metalcore style and have been doing that for quite some time. So over the course of time, what made you think that you wanted to add those pop elements into your metalcore style basically from the beginning?
That's probably my fault because I like my music tastes are mostly pop, R&B, um and obviously metal, but I some of my favorite vocalists are like Adele, Amy Winehouse, Ariana Grande. Like those are my people. So when I was learning how to sing, I've always just wanted to have that really hooky part that I always felt a lot of metal was missing. And I didn't want to be confined in like, oh well, we have to have this kind of chorus and this kind, like I value melody so much that I just want to bring that hookiness into a genre that can sometimes just be very like balls to the wall all the time. And I think we need those dynamic moments, and that's something I've always wanted. And um of course I want those like massive vocal moments because it's what I love to do. It's how I like writing music, and I just listen to too much pop and I love it.
And it just, whatever you listen to, it's going to end up flowing into your music because that's what you care about. That's what you like.
Mhm.
That's what you're picking up certain nuances from. So those influences are going to come in at some standpoint. But it makes a lot of sense from, I listen to stuff that's like, okay, you know, metal from back in, you know, the 70s, 80s, 90s. And it did always have the same consistent flow to it. So I never really fully got into it because the dynamics necessarily weren't fully there for my musical liking. But seeing bands a lot more now, it's where they're having more concerns about where those melodies are coming from, how those choruses can really amplify a song overall by not being just always balls to the wall all the time. Though I do like a lot of the bands are doing
We
balls
love
to the wall
that.
stuff
Don't
now.
get me wrong. We
Yeah.
love it. We love, like, obviously I wrote a song like Eat Glass, but like I think it to be confined to like just one thing is so boring. Like do whatever you want. And that's at the end of the day, that's all like we want to do. It's just like let's give people a taste of who we are through the music, and not feel like we have to do anything for the sake of staying in a genre. But it's also kind of what my voice wants to do. Like I sometimes, I mean, I'm not a stranger to Reddit, and sometimes I find people talking about me on Reddit, and some people are like, "Wow, she just does too much." And it's like, "Well, that's what my voice wants to do is too much." Like, of course I'm going to have too much vibrato and too many like vocal runs and dipping in and out of like distortion, because like that's just what my voice wants to do. Like that's why I could never sing in a pop punk band. I can never sing anything too straight. Like I have to be too much. It's just the dramaticness of my voice, and I love it. I would never change it. That never change.
Oh God, it's bringing up Reddit. All I could remember was the conversation I had with Lochi from Alpha Wolf. He was the same way. He's just like, yeah, people on Reddit, they're always complaining about something. They're always telling me like I'm wrong
Yeah.
with this or wrong with that. And he was like, yeah, just wait till the album drops and see what they say. And I'm like, well, I'm hoping he's right, but I actually knew he was right because I already listened. And they dropped it. And it was like, yeah, and then everyone loved Alpha Wolf again. It's just like, yeah, let the artists do what they want to do. Let them create it because it's their art. It's their creation. It's coming from what's inside them. You don't want to limit that or tell you exactly what it is. It goes back to the beginning of the conversation. If we put artists in those certain boxes and we limit that creativity, then so much is lost to the world.
Yeah, there's so much potential that goes out the window. Like I said, I don't want to write another I'd Rather Be Asleep. I don't want to write another I don't want a whole album full of smoke screens. And I think if the whole album was like Eat Glass, it would be super fatiguing to anyone's ear. So it's like, and it loses its punch. Like I think the whole point is like you listen to the album and then you reach Eat Glass and you're like, oh my God, like what the hell is happening right now? So it's like, in the end, just like the artist just got to do what the artists want to do, and you're either on the bus or you're not. And it's like, if you miss the bus, then too bad. Like, sucks to be you.
Yeah, so everyone just don't miss the bus. That'd be a bad idea. Lauren, I have one more question I really want to ask you because it's something I
Yeah.
love asking every artist I bring on. because it allows us not only get to know more of the music that you love, but gets us to discover more music ourselves, especially the authentic stuff. I'm going to limit it to 3. So can you give me 3 bands or artists that you absolutely love that you would love to see a lot more people get into?
Oh God. I'm gonna name my queens. Kalani, SZA, and Victoria Monet. I think those are 3. Those are the queens. I think more people need to listen to R&B and hip hop inspired stuff because there's just so many cool artists out there.
And the more, especially from an artist standpoint, the more you listen to stuff that's from other genres, you're going to get inspired with other ideas, other things, and other ways to present your ideas to and present your stories, present your lyrics. It's going to be a good thing. The more, the better.
Absolutely.
Well,
More
Lauren,
is more.
Well, Lauren, before we end this podcast, I always like to give my guests, which is you in this case, a chance to say whatever you want to say, plug whatever you want to plug, promote whatever you want to promote at the end of the episode. So, floor is yours.
First I want to say thank you to everyone listening and who stuck around for the whole episode. I hope you guys enjoy this album. It was truly a labor of love, and we could not be more proud of this band. And I hope something resonates with you, and I hope that you enjoy it. That's really it. That's all.
That is an incredible way to close this out. So now I got to close out with 3 things. First things first, you're going to want to check out A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia when it drops on May 24th. And if it's already out by the time you're listening to this, now go listen to it like right now. But here's the best thing about it. When it comes to Red Hand Nile, Lauren, everything around that, the best way to stay in touch and know when more new music is coming out, when they're going to be touring once again, and to connect with the band is go to Script from the Podcast where it says, find Red Hand Nile online. There's going to be links and labels for everything. I'm doing all the searching. I'm doing all the putting this together. So you have no reason to not just go down there, click on one link. It'll take you everything you need. So I got you covered on that. So yeah. Now it's time for number 2. Lauren, whenever I guest in the podcast, I enjoy the podcast. I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say, thank you for being on the podcast. I really do appreciate your time, and I want to continue to support the band in the future. My promise is this. It is when I get to see you perform live for the first time, and hopefully you're playing Eat Glass at that show as well, so I can go absolutely ape crazy in the pit. At some point, I will do my best Liam Neeson from Taken impersonation. I will look for you. I will find you, but I will just say hi and promise first round's on me.
Hell yeah. And you have to start the mosh pit.
That's a given, honestly. That's usually what I do to every show I'm at. So it's me and my whole bunch of my whole bunch of shithead friends that just started because that's what we like to do. It's fun. So we're doing it.
Yes. And I'll take you up on that offer.
Perfect. And then number 3, I cannot end this episode by saying goodbye because this was fantastic. I really want to thank you for taking the time, Lauren. I made a promise to you. I got to keep that promise. Plus, I would love to be back on the podcast again in the future. So I cannot say goodbye. I have to say, I'll see you later.
See you later.
Woo! Well, folks, an interview with Lauren from the band Red Hand Nile. And now it's time for Kevin's final thought. I really want to thank Lauren for being on the podcast because diving so deep into the first half of the conversation, hearing about the struggles of, living in a virtual dystopia, living through all of that, thinking about the amount of prominence that the internet has taken over and these devices like my phone right here have taken over. It's the computer you might be watching on or the phone. It doesn't matter what you're watching on or listening this on. It's based on the fact that it has severed so much human connection and has rewired us to rethink all about how, we're going to even be presented to people. Everyone's trying to get noticed online. Everyone's trying to find those other ones. And in music, too, it restricts creativity. I'm going to stand by that because now the focus is on finding that viral moment, and that's it. And when you focus in on finding that viral moment to make your band pop off, you're going to write songs for what's going to be popular, what's going to hit in that viral moment. And some of the stuff is cool, don't get me wrong. I mean, we saw what happened with Will Ramos and Lorna Shore. We saw what happened with Just Pretend. We saw what happened with Sleep Token. But those are exceptions to the rule. How many bands out there are trying to mimic just what is working for us? And it's taking away from the potential identity. It's a real crisis in my mind. And I really hope in the future that artists are able to find that way to really show that creativity once again and have the bankability beyond their individuality and creativity and really what they can do as artists and think outside the box and not fit into what the algorithm of a social media site or what AI really thinks. It's a tough thing to go forward with, but it's something that we have to do to really continue to see music thrive and see artists continue to show that creativity. When it comes to Red Hand Denial, make sure you go check out the brand new album, A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia. Go stream the podcast, just find Red Hand Denial online. Links, labels for everything for Red Hand Denial and Lauren as well are going to be down there. So make sure you go follow Lauren, follow the band, and make sure you go and check them out whenever they're coming near you. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Chord Progression Podcast right down here. Brand new episodes every single Tuesday and Thursday, and react videos pretty much every single Friday. Also, hit like right down here to like us and, pushes the algorithm, even though I just kind of lambasted the algorithm, but still help us out anyway. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to us there. Like the episodes. Follow us Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Those links in the description below as well. So that's my spiel. Thank you very much, Lauren. Cannot wait to see you play live and cannot wait to hear Eat Glass live and get the pick going like a madman. On that note, that's for you guys. Thank you very much for listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how I end every single one. So it's the big, healthy, and hearty. See ya! Yeah.